Billionaire fakes a forgetful moment. You won't believe the waitress's shocking response. The air crackled with tension in the dimly lit diner, where secrets hung thick like the smell of greasy pancakes. It wasn't just another Sunday morning, it was the moment everything was about to unravel. As the door swung open, a wave of chatter faded into hushed whispers. The sunlight caught his designer sunglasses, reflecting glimmers of something hidden: opulence, deception, or perhaps both. Everyone turned to look, their forks paused midair. Who was that man? He strolled in like he owned the place, his tailored suit clinging to him like a second skin. His presence commanded attention. That was Victor Ainsworth, the billionaire. He had a sprawling mansion on the other side of town, a collection of cars that could rival a museum, and rumors swirling around him like autumn leaves. But today, he wore an expression that twisted curiosity into a knot of unease. Was he late? Did he forget something important? The lunchtime crowd was riveted, eyes darting between his confident stride and the waitress at the counter. She was just Maggie, a local girl with dreams bigger than this diner. Torn between starry-eyed ambition and the reality of dirty dishes, she didn't stand a chance against the billionaire's magnetic allure. But as she approached him, her heart raced. There was something in the way he fidgeted with his watch, glancing over his shoulder. Was he looking for someone? Or was he hiding something? The tension thickened as he leaned over the counter, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Her eyes widened. Was she just a pawn in his game? As more customers leaned in to catch the exchange, silence settled like a heavy fog. A butterfly outside flapped its wings, unbothered by the storms brewing inside the diner. Then came the twist. Suddenly, Victor's voice burst with outrage, shocking the gathered patrons. I can't believe you lost it. You were supposed to bring it to me." Panic flared in Maggie's eyes. What did he mean? What was he talking about? In that heartbeat, the room filled with gasps, the atmosphere electrified. Everyone wondered, what was Victor Ainsworth talking about? Did he misplace something invaluable? And why did Maggie look so terrified? Just then, Maggie's trembling hands reached under the counter, pulling out what? A flash of metal? A glint that set everyone's hearts racing. What was truly at stake in this diner today? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The chatter exploded around them as Victor's tension grew palpable. Everyone was on the edge of their seats, anticipating the answer, hanging on to each word that would spill from either their lips. But Maggie's hesitation was like a stone dropped in still water. Ripples of doubt spread. And just as she opened her mouth, ready to spill whatever secret was swirling in her head, the diner door crashed open again, and in strode a figure cloaked in shadow. Who was it, and why were they looking directly at Victor? The room felt colder as whispers filled the air once more, questions bouncing around like ping-pong balls. What did this mean for everyone caught in the middle of this twisted game? The heavy door swung shut behind the newcomer, sending a gust of icy air through the diner. The chatter faded to nothing as everyone's eyes shifted to a woman draped in a dark, leather coat, her features obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. The atmosphere thickened, anticipation crackled like static electricity. Victor's gaze pinned her with intense recognition, and the muscle in his jaw clenched. "Lydia," he breathed, barely above a whisper. Maggie's grasp on the object she'd just revealed tightened instinctively. What held the diner's curiosity was not just the shadowy figure, but the palpable tension building between the two. Lydia stepped closer, her heels clicking against the worn tiles, each step laced with purpose. "You shouldn't be here, Victor," she said, her voice cool, cutting through the murmur of gathering onlookers. Maggie's heart pounded as her eyes flickered between the two. Who was Lydia? And what had she gotten herself into? Victor took a step forward, wiping the sweat from his brow. I had no choice. You know how urgent this is, he countered, desperation creeping into his otherwise confident tone. The patrons leaned in, holding their breaths, captivated by the unfolding drama. Lydia merely raised an eyebrow, a slight smirk playing at the corners of her lips. You thought you could just walk away from everything and forget? Her voice dripped with sarcasm. You can't just lose what's not yours to lose, Victor. Maggie's mind raced. What was she holding? It felt heavy in her pocket. She needed to know what connected the billionaire and this enigmatic woman. Sweat bead down her back as the tension in the room reached a fever pitch. Ignoring the crowd's scrutiny, Victor snapped his gaze back to Maggie. You need to give it to me now. His voice was urgent, suddenly fierce. The mix of fear and defiance twisted in her stomach. She froze as if time stopped, the weight of the metal she held felt heavier than ever. But hold on, what exactly was at stake? Lydia stepped between them, her demeanor shielding Victor from Maggie's view, while the audience murmured, the din resembling the sound of waves crashing against the shore. Hand it over, sweetie, before you find out what real trouble looks like, she drawled, her voice silky smooth yet laced with menace. Maggie glanced around. There was something about Lydia that sent shivers down her spine. The glances of regulars turned to pity, then fear. Were they thinking the same thing? What was happening here? She clenched the metal tighter. I don't know what you're talking about, Maggie stammered, her heart racing. She felt the heat of their eyes robbing her of any choice. Could she trust Victor, or was he just another beast in a suit? Please, Maggie, Victor urged, desperation etching deeper lines in his face. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Her fingers trembled. Did she give it to him? Was it worth the risk? The jeers around her faded to white noise as Lydia took another step forward, eyes glinting like daggers. Tick-tock, dear. Time's running out. As chaos simmered in the diner, Maggie considered her next move. Would she hand over the object? Or would she step into the unknown, unearthing the very secrets threatening to destroy them all? The choice was hers. In that moment, the door swung open once more, and a tall figure, silhouetted against the light, stepped into the diner, eyes fixed intently on Lydia. Fear gripped Maggie. Who were they, and how would they shift the shifting tides of this confrontation? The figure stepped into the diner, casting a long shadow across the checkered floor, each stride imbued with a confidence that felt almost magnetic. As the light spilled in from the open door, revealing strong features and piercing blue eyes, the tension in the room snapped like a taut wire ready to burst. Maggie's breath caught in her throat, an involuntary gasp, multiple shades of dread escaping her lips. Who was this new player? The crowd hung in hushed disbelief, eyes darting between Lydia, Victor, and the newcomer, as if waiting for a match to ignite the kindling of tension brewing all around them. Lydia, undeterred, smirked and crossed her arms. We meet again, Tom, she said, her voice now dripping with a mix of amusement and annoyance. Maggie glanced at Victor, whose expression turned to sheer panic. What is he doing here? He mouthed, the words silent but his concern unmistakable. Tom stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. I got word you were in town, Lydia. Thought I'd pay you a little visit, he replied, the casual tone belying the seriousness of the moment. But it looks like you're already busy. His eyes slid past her, landing squarely on Maggie. And who's this? Maggie's heart raced. Was she just another piece on this strange chessboard? She stammered, caught in a whirlwind of confusion and worry. Victor seized the moment, stepping protectively closer to Maggie, his eyes darting back to Tom, then to Lydia. This is a mistake, Tom. You need to leave, he warned, a note of desperation creeping back into his voice. Oh, is it? Tom replied, tilting his head slightly, his eyes narrowing. Or is this exactly where I need to be? The softness in his tone juxtaposed with the steel in his gaze made Maggie's pulse quicken. He seemed to thrive on chaos. Enough games. Lydia snapped, stepping forward and thrusting her finger towards the object in Maggie's pocket. You'll regret it if you don't hand it over now. The diner's patrons held their breath, collective fear transforming the atmosphere into a tangible entity, pressing against Maggie's chest. She could hear it, her heartbeat, loud and frantic, drowning out even the faint whispers of the other diners. What was it that everyone wanted so badly? Suddenly, the back door swung open and another person entered, this one even taller than the last. He was clad in dark denim, his hat pulled low over his brow, obscuring his features. Everyone exchanged confused glances. Was it a rescue or another threat? Lydia, the newcomer, called out, his voice gravelly and deep, slicing through the tension. Get away from her. What the hell? Lydia snapped in disbelief, her eyes flickering between the tension-ridden faces around her. The restaurant seemed to sway under the weight of the situation. Victor clenched his fists, caught in a tug-of-war between allegiance and fear. Maggie could feel the object in her pocket, burning against her skin but still veiled in mystery. Maggie, Tom urged, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, you don't know what you're holding. It's dangerous. Is it? She whispered back defiantly, her voice shaking only slightly. Or is it just valuable to you? The words lingered in the air, and for a moment, every eye was on her. Tom's expression darkened, a flicker of irritation surfacing momentarily. Give it to me, he ordered, and the raw command sent shivers down her spine, and that when the diner fell silent. Every conversation stopped. Every fear hung in the air. One question remained, and it echoed in Maggie's mind, who exactly could she trust? As the four of them stood in the eye of a brewing storm, another sound, a low rumble, filled the diner, an ominous warning. The door swung open one more time, but this time it was followed by a distant siren's wail that seemed to draw ever closer, as though fate itself was about to intervene. Maggie looked up, her heart pounding, knowing that the clock was ticking down to something inevitable, something that would ultimately shatter the fragile alliances formed in that moment. Maggie's mind raced as the sirens wailed closer, a dreadful crescendo of urgency piercing the tension in the diner. She felt stuck, trapped between Tom's icy blue gaze and the newcomer's imposing figure. Lydia's defiance looked fragile now, like glass that could shatter at the slightest touch. What did they all want from her? Victor shot her a glance, an unspoken message etched across his face. Whatever it is, don't give it to him, he seemed to say. She could sense the weight of his fear, mingling with her own. But how could she act when the stakes felt so impossibly high? Lydia, I swear if you lay a finger on her. Tom's voice held a quiet menace, and Maggie braced herself for chaos. But before anything could escalate, the figure by the door stepped forward, his silhouette sharpening in the diner's flickering light. Enough! He boomed. The shock of his command drew every eye, his presence demanding and magnetic. Maggie, he continued, his voice authoritative yet strangely comforting, you're safe now. I'll take care of this. The hat overshadowed his features, but something about his steadiness breathed a spark of hope. Lydia laughed mockingly, cutting through the tension like a blade. You think you can protect her? You don't know what you're stepping into. Oh, I know plenty, he shot back, his confidence unwavering. It's you who doesn't understand the consequences. With every word, Maggie felt the pressure of decisions bearing down. What consequences lay ahead? Who was this mysterious figure, and what did he know? Was he friend or foe? She clenched the object in her pocket tighter, its form grounding her as realities of the diner twisted further into chaos. Before she could process her thoughts, Tom shifted, his pivot toward Maggie abrupt and alarming. I don't want to hurt you, he said, each word coated in a steel veneer that sent chills crawling across her skin. Just give me what you have, and this can end without bloodshed. The tension crackled like static in the air, deafening. Every patron held their breath, eyes flitting between Tom and the man at the door. No. Maggie said, her voice ringing clear and resolute. You're all using me like some sort of pawn. The room seemed to pulse in response to her words, energy shifting as she stepped back, away from Tom's reach. Don't be a fool, Maggie, Tom warned, desperation lacing his voice. A hint of anger twisted his handsome features as he advanced into her space. The sirens grew louder, a calculated reminder of the looming threat. Lydia's voice interrupted, shrill with a hint of craziness. She doesn't know what she's holding. You all don't know what's at stake here. As the noise built, so did Maggie's resolve. Stop. She shouted. Just stop. You can't keep pushing me around. I deserve to know why everyone wants this thing. The diner fell silent again, each face frozen in amazement at her sudden outburst. For a split second, even Tom froze, his icy demeanor melting just enough for a flicker of admiration to shine through. Maggie the newcomer spoke softly, an edge of a plea woven in his tone. Listen to me. You need to trust me. The truth is darker than you think. Just then, the air shifted, and the familiar sound of approaching footsteps echoed from the outside. Who's there? He called, tension slicing through the air anew. Maggie's heart raced. Could it be someone more dangerous, or could it be a way out? The door swung open again. This time, she felt the weight of fate colliding with her reality. Every instinct screamed at her to act. But what would the next move be? The only thing she knew for certain was that their fragile wall of trust might very well crumble any second. Get ready, she whispered to Victor, her throat dry. Whatever happens next, we need to stick together. But would they stand strong against the tidal wave of secrets that threatened to drag them all under? The door swung wide, revealing a frazzled figure drenched in rain and adrenaline. Officer Garcia, badge gleaming even under the flickering diner lights, stepped inside, shaking off the damp from her brown hair. What the hell is going on here? She demanded, eyes darting between the tension-infused faces. Maggie could sense a shift in the air. Perhaps this was the authoritative intervention they desperately needed. Relief washed over her, but just for a moment. Lydia, back off, Garcia said, noticing the wild-eyed woman poised as if ready to pounce, her expression caught between fury and fear. Tom. You too. Hands where I can see them. In that instant, Maggie's world felt a beat lighter, though adrenaline pulsed beneath her skin. The familiarity of the officer's voice ignited hope, and she hated how desperately she clung to it. Officer, you don't understand. Tom began, his voice rising. Don't test me, Tom, Garcia interrupted with a steel edge, stepping forward. I will not hesitate to take you down. Right now, I'm asking questions. She focused her gaze on Maggie, softening slightly. What do you have? What is going on? I don't know, Maggie stammered, the forgotten object in her pocket feeling heavier with every passing second. They want something from me. From us. Lydia lunged, her voice fractured with insane laughter. You think a badge can protect you? This is bigger than you. Shut up, Lydia. Victor snapped, positioning himself protectively in front of Maggie as if daring her to push any further. Everybody just breathe, Garcia commanded, her eyes narrowing. You're all acting crazy. Either someone explains what is happening, or I will lock everyone up tonight. Every breath felt like a gunshot in the thick air. Maggie looked between the figures, Tom's defensiveness, Lydia's manic energy, Victor's fierce loyalty, and felt a new surge of determination. No one is lying to you, officer. They want this. She pulled the object from her pocket, revealing a small, intricate key. It gleamed as if it held the promise of 1,000 locked doors. Gasps erupted from the diner patrons, their breath hitching in disbelief. What is that? Victor blurted, eyes wide. It's a key, Maggie said, her voice faltering. I don't know what it unlocks, but they think I have it. Garcia stepped closer, her demeanor shifting from suspicion to awe. Where did you get that? I found it outside, by the dumpster, after I heard the argument. Maggie's words trailed off into the silence that followed. Outside? Lydia screeched, do you have any idea what that means? That key doesn't belong to you, it unlocks something valuable. You're in danger. As if summoned by her words, the diner door rattled violently, sending a shockwave of tension through everyone. Another figure lurked outside, someone larger, darker, their shadow spilling into the light. What now? Tom hissed, eyes flaring. Garcia moved to intervene, but Maggie could see a glimmer of panic creeping into the officer's steady facade. "We need to get out of here," Garcia said, the urgency palpable in her tone. "No!" Maggie shouted, feeling the adrenaline surge again. "We can't run. We need to understand this, now." The door swung wide, revealing a man with a wild stare and a voice like knives. "You've got something that belongs to me," he growled, stepping into the diner with a confidence that made the tension feel like fire. Maggie's heart thundered in her chest. The stakes were higher than she could ever have imagined. The revelation that had unfolded was only the beginning of a nightmare that promised no easy escape. "Who are you?" she managed to ask, pulse racing, knowing that whatever he wanted could redefine everything. His grin sent shivers down her spine. "You'll find out soon enough, Maggie." And with that, the night plunged into chaos as the air crackled with untold secrets, leaving her wondering if trusting anyone had been the wrong choice. What awaited her in this unfolding tale, hidden beneath layers of deception? The man's presence sent a ripple through the diner, as if the very air had thickened with his dark energy. His eyes glistened with a dangerous curiosity, locked onto Maggie like a hunter spotting prey. "Step away from her," Garcia commanded, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Or what, officer?" The man smirked, leaning against the counter, arms folded. "I could make this whole place disappear with a snap of my fingers. Hardly worth the trouble, don't you think?" The patrons huddled together, some whispering urgent prayers, while others reached for their phones, fingers trembling over screens, unsure of who to call. Maggie's thoughts raced. She had the key. It was tangible, inexplicably important. "What do you want with me?" she croaked, wishing her voice had more strength. He stepped closer, looming over her. "What you have in your pocket is a map to something greater than you can imagine. But it's not about the key itself. It's about the journey it will unlock." Lydia shot forward, her hair wild like a tempest. "You're lying. You just want to steal it, don't you?" "Enough," Garcia barked, her patience fraying. She raised her weapon slightly, aiming it carefully at the man. "You will back off, now." The man chuckled darkly, seemingly unfazed. "You think your badge intimidates me? I've danced with far worse than you, officer." The moment hung, taut as a wire. Maggie sensed the delicate balance of power shifting. "Please," she whispered, her heart pounding in unison with the frantic whispers of those around her. "I don't know what it's for. Just tell me." His eyes narrowed, piercing into hers. "You will, soon enough." Suddenly, he lunged toward her, quick as a flash. "No!" Victor shouted, throwing himself between Maggie and the looming threat. The impact of their bodies colliding echoed through the diner, a gasp escaping from the crowd. Garcia moved in a barely perceptible instant, her focus locked on the chaos unfolding. "Get down!" she yelled, commanding both Lydia and Tom to obey. But the man was already responding. With a bellow, he shoved Victor aside, striking him hard enough to send him sprawling across the floor. "Enough games," he spat, turning back toward Maggie, his voice dripping with venom. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. I will have that key." Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the diner into semi-darkness. Gasps filled the room, tension spilling over. The clattering of dishes came as the diner patrons froze, everyone bracing for what would happen next. Maggie felt a chill crawl up her spine. This is insane," she stammered. She couldn't afford to lose focus. The key was still in her pocket, heavy with the weight of the unknown. "Run, Maggie!" Victor shouted, struggling to rise. But before she could react, the man lunged again, grabbing her wrist with a vice-like grip. "You don't have the choice to run, sweetheart," he growled, his face inches from hers, heat radiating from his body. "You have something more precious than your little life." Maggie's pulse quickened, a mix of fear and defiance flooding her veins. The others were shouting, Garcia was trying to regain control, and somewhere lost in the noise, she could hear the sound of the rain pounding against the diner's window, mingling with her racing thoughts. "Get the key, Maggie." Whatever it takes. Tom yelled from the floor, struggling to push himself up, but before she could grasp her surroundings, the man yanked the key from her pocket. The metal cool against her skin was replaced by a sudden dread as he held it aloft. Now, we can truly begin. In the ensuing scramble, the power snapped back on, illuminating the diner in a harsh, blinding light. Just outside, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Maggie felt the room whirl around her, her heart sinking. Whatever escape was on the horizon, it was slipping away fast. Would they be caught in a web of violence, or could they turn the tide before it was too late? As he grinned, way too pleased with himself, she realized the stakes had never been higher. What lay behind that door of opportunity he had unlocked could either save them or shatter everything. Get ready, because this ride is just beginning, he whispered, and with a gaze that promised chaos, he pushed open the door again. Maggie's hands trembled, the weight of decision pressing down. Would she follow him into the unknown, or take the fight to reclaim what was hers? Maggie's instincts screamed at her to move, but her body felt frozen. The moment stretched, time warping around them as the mysterious man swung the door open. The diner's neon glow illuminated the space beyond, a strange invitation pulsing with danger and temptation. Where are you taking me? She breathed, her voice barely a whisper. Somewhere where the key can shine, he replied, his smile chilling her to the bone. Or you can stay here and find out how deep the darkness truly goes. The sirens drew nearer, each wail cutting like ice through the already tense atmosphere. Garcia was focused, directing the few patrons still standing. Back away, everyone. Stay calm. She barked, but she was losing control. The servers, crouched behind counters, fled to the kitchen, desperate to escape the tsunami of chaos. Let her go. Victor shouted from the floor, pushing himself up to take aim at the man with Garcia's fallen weapon. Don't be a hero, Victor. Maggie yelled, feeling the desperation shatter through her fear. The man smirked, twisting the key in his fingers. He's right, you could be a hero, but I've no time for miscalculated bravery. If you don't come with me, there are dangers waiting. His voice was smooth, laced with a promise of unseen horrors. Garcia's weapon was still trained on him, but it felt futile. We can negotiate. You don't need to take her, she said, her tone wavering but firm. Negotiate? He laughed, the sound dark and hollow. You misunderstood. The only negotiation here is whether or not you get to keep your lives. With a swift motion, he flung the key back toward Maggie. It landed near her feet, the metal glinting ominously under the diner lights. Don't, she whispered, realizing how crucial this moment was. Without so much as a blink, he returned his gaze to her. You're out of time. Make your choice, Maggie. The lights flickered again, scrambling her thoughts. The diner's walls echoed with the panicked whispers of the other customers as confusion reigned. Fear gripped her heart, squeezing hard. Every fiber of her being screamed for escape, yet that key was a tether binding her to a path she wasn't entirely ready to follow. Do you trust me? Victor's voice cut through the noise, stronger than she expected, despite the pain etched on his face. The honesty in his eyes urged her. Could she trust him? Or was this a moment to take the plunge into the unknown? The man stepped toward her, the shadows flickering around him like hungry wolves. The reality of his threat settled heavily in her stomach, twisting like a knife. Time is running out, Maggie. Don't let your fear decide your fate. She had choices laid before her, each one fraught with peril. The key glittered invitingly, yet it felt like it glowed with an ominous energy. I can't, she whispered, her voice breaking. But you must. Victor urged desperately, the words hanging in the air. With a final glance at the key and the man's fiery eyes, she felt a rush of resolve. If she was going to fight back, she had to act now. In an impulsive leap, she grabbed the key from the floor. You want it? You'll have to fight for it. With that proclamation, chaos erupted all over again. The man lunged, Garcia fired, and the mix of confusion reached a fever pitch. But in that split second, the outside world crashed into the diner, sirens blaring as cops flooded the entrance. "Everyone down!" came a sharp order, cutting through the frenzy. Maggie's heart raced as she ducked instinctively. What would this shocking turn mean? Would their action save them, or would it doom them all? Caught between choices and chaos, she wondered if this was the unfolding of a destiny she couldn't escape. "Don't let them take you!" the man shouted one last time as the scene spiraled into madness. With the diner now a battleground, the question lingered: could she survive the storm, or would the storm claim her? The deafening sound of sirens reverberated through the diner, drowning out the chaos as officers surged through the entrance, weapons drawn and shouts piercing the air. "Hands in the air!" they barked, their voices filled with authority, but the brewing tension made Maggie's heart pound like a war drum. The mysterious man. Victor Garcia. Patrons still huddled in fear. Everything collided in her mind, a storm of confusion and desperation. She clutched the key tightly in her fist, its edges digging into her palm, grounding her in this madness. Was she ready to fight? What did the man mean about the darkness? Glancing toward him, his expression was unreadable now, shadows magnifying the cold threat lurking in his eyes. Garcia's tone was frantic as she managed to stand her ground, her weapon still trained on the intruder, but her gaze flickered nervously. "I need backup," she shouted into her radio. "We have an armed suspect, and he's threatening a hostage." The man chuckled, low and ominous. "Hostage? If only you understood this game better, officer. She holds the key, after all." His smirk widened as he nodded toward Maggie. "Stay back," Garcia ordered, her composure slipping. "This is a tactical situation." Yet Maggie felt a surge of anger crash over her like a tidal wave. Anger at the man's arrogance, at the fear choking her spirit. "I'm not a pawn," she yelled, letting the words fly free. "You want this key? Come and get it." In an instant, the atmosphere shifted. The strange man took a cautious step back, assessing her with a hint of surprise. It fueled her resolve. Even as officers shouted commands, and chaos reigned, she felt something begin to ignite inside her. Victor nodded, trying to lift himself off the ground, wincing. "Don't let him manipulate you, Maggie. Use the key, it can help." Suddenly, fear mixed with determination bubbled up in her. What if the key unlocked more than just a door? What if it opened a chance to escape this nightmare? Her breathing quickened. "What does this key really do?" she shouted into the fray. The man tilted his head, watching with a predatory gaze. "A key, dear Maggie, can lead to salvation or doom. Open that door, and you may find the monsters waiting behind it are much worse than me." Before she could process his words, Officer Garcia shouted, "Move in. We don't have time for this." She had to think. Every second counted. Panic clawed at her throat, but she clung tighter to the key, feeling its warmth radiate against her skin. It was hers now. And she would grasp every ounce of power it bestowed. "Did you hear him?" Victor stressed, struggling to rise further. "You can't trust him." The officers advanced, stress painted on their faces, weapons steadily rising toward the man, who stood like an ominous shadow in the chaos. Moments passed as they stared each other down. And through it all, Maggie felt the weight of the key in her hand. Was she brave enough to unlock the door and face whatever lay beyond? Just as the standoff reached its peak, a loud crash erupted from the back of the diner, the kitchen door exploding open. A figure stumbled out, holding something that glimmered under the neon lights. Everyone turned to watch, tense and rigid. Had help arrived, or was it another threat? Maggie's heart raced, her mind racing even faster. Would this new arrival swing the balance in their favor? Or would it drown them all in darkness? "Get ready!" she shouted, the urgency echoing in the cacophony. The moment hung in the air, electric with possibility. Choices were narrowing down, and the impending storm felt close enough to feel on her skin. What lay ahead? Would she find freedom or a new prison? The figure stepped closer, and the diner collectively held its breath. What would happen next? The figure stumbled into full view, the dim light revealing a youthful woman, her clothes tattered, hair a wild mess. She bore an urgency in her wide eyes, glancing back into the kitchen as if monsters were chasing her. Clutched in her hands was a gleaming object. It was a knife, its blade sharp and menacing. "Back! Stay back!" she screamed, panic spilling over her. The knife wavered in her grip, but the energy buzzing around the diner was palpable. Maggie felt the adrenaline grip her chest. In the immensity of the situation, she could sense the unpredictable nature of the newcomer. "What happened?" Maggie demanded, trying to maintain some control. "I saw them. They're coming." The girl backed away, putting space between herself and the officers, her eyes darting as if shadows were creeping closer. "You need to hide. You can't trust anyone." Garcia took a step forward, her weapon still raised. "What did you see? Who's coming?" Frustrated at the imminent danger, she barked for the girl to drop the knife. But Maggie sensed this was not just the girl being erratic. There was truth behind her desperate warning. The man in the shadows chuckled again, an unsettling sound that curled the edges of her sanity. "You should listen to her. Fear has a way of unveiling truths." He stepped closer, his dark presence almost bleeding into the tension. "What's on the other side of that door is a reflection of the darkest parts of you." Despite the noise, his voice slithered through her mind, igniting something she had buried deep within, a connection, a flicker of unrelenting bravery. "Why should I listen to you?" Maggie shot back, her voice defiant. Her heart was pounding, yet a cold clarity focused her. "You might end up proving her right, you know. It's chaos or courage. Choose your side." The girl nodded fiercely, her grip on the knife tightening. "Listen to her. He's dangerous." The panic in the diner was palpable. The patrons, pressed up against the windows, were whispers of fear. They were all just trying to survive this possible nightmare. But Maggie was the only one with a key. And no matter what secrets the man claimed it held, she knew she had to confront him. "Then let us end this debate," the man said, his gaze locking onto hers. "You want to know what the key unlocks? Do you have the strength to step through?" As if on cue, the wailing sirens faded momentarily, replaced by another ominous sound, the clash of breaking glass from the kitchen. The sound tangled in her mind like a struggle for survival. This was it. "Victor, get down!" Garcia shouted, and the frantic dance of chaos revived. Maggie took a deep breath, time stretched thin and her pulse raced. She turned toward the kitchen, prepared for whatever was lurking within. "Are you ready to face the darkness?" the man asked, stepping closer. His words flowed with a sinister sweetness. "Are you ready to make yourself whole?" The new arrival shook her head violently, dropping the knife. "No. You can't trust him. They're not just after us. They know everything." Maggie could barely process the implications in her mind. Trust began to slither away with every revelation and scream echoing out of the diner. The key in her hands felt both sacred and cursed. With dread creeping colder into her bones, she realized she had no choice. She could either confront the shadows or live in chains of her own making. "I'll find out what's behind that door," she declared fiercely, but just then, shadows shifted, and she could hear footsteps approaching all around them. She could almost feel the breath of impending darkness creeping in, feeding off their fear. The air thickened, tension coiling like a serpent ready to strike. Maggie stood firm, the key at her side, knowing that whatever lay ahead would change everything. The door swung open, and a chilling wind howled through the diner, bringing with it a catastrophic chill. Could she survive what was waiting beyond that threshold? Or would her bravery crumble against the looming darkness? What charging storm awaited her on the other side? The moment the door burst open, the diner's atmosphere thickened with dread. A man, flanked by shadows, stepped into the light, his eyes gleaming with a malevolence that sent a shiver down Maggie's spine. This was at the moment of reckoning. The sirens that had faded into the background roared back to life, but they felt far away now, as if the outside world no longer mattered. "You thought you could hide from me?" His voice was a sinister lull, wrapping around her like a vice. That key belongs to someone who knows what to do with it. Maggie's fingers tightened around the key. It pulsed in her grip, alive with secrets and promises she didn't yet understand. Victor, now picking himself off the floor, moved closer to her, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Don't let him intimidate you," he muttered, even as he glowered at the new arrival. Garcia stepped forward, weapon raised with unwavering authority. "You are outnumbered. Step back or I will not hesitate to take you down." The threat hung in the air, heavy and charged with tension. "Do you really think you can protect her, officer? This world is not as simple as it seems. Maggie has something far more valuable than all of you combined." He laughed again, a cold sound that echoed amidst the clamor of the diner's tension. "Stop talking," Maggie shouted, the fire in her chest igniting raw courage. "What do you want from me? Why do you want this key?" Fear wrapped around her heart, but anger cut through it like a knife. She stepped forward, the key glinting defiantly in her hand. "I'm done being your pawn." He paused, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. "Good. It's about time you started making choices." Then he pointed an accusing finger at her. "But know this, what lies beyond that door isn't just a treasure. It's the unraveling of who you are." "What does that mean?" she demanded, everything about his presence gnawing at her. The air felt charged, as though the walls of the diner had begun to lean in. She needed answers, a clear path through this chaos, but before he could reply, the woman with the knife staggered forward again, her eyes darting with pure panic. "I saw them. The ones who want the key. They're coming, and they won't stop until they get what they want." Her voice broke, raw with dread. "Enough." Garcia barked again. This wasn't just a showdown anymore, it was a stampede of uncertainty and fear. "I can get you out," the mysterious man interjected, his voice seemingly calm amidst the storm. "There's a way, but you need to trust me." His eyes drilled into hers, as if searching her soul. "You choose this life or a secret buried by shadows." Maggie's heart raced at the idea. "And what if you're lying?" "I'm not here to deceive you, I offer you a choice," he insisted, his voice laced with urgency. The sirens wailed louder as if they heralded impending doom. The diner patrons began to shuffle nervously, their whispers a reverberating chorus of disbelief and fear. "Trust is a luxury we can't afford right now," Victor warned, stepping closer to Maggie. "Whatever he's offering could put us in even more danger. We need to stick together." His eyes flickered back to the door, then to her. "Don't give in to fear." Maggie felt torn between the instinct to flee and the urge to confront the chaos head-on. The shadows were closing in, wrapping around her heart. Was this key her salvation or the beginning of a nightmare? Before she could think more, the man stepped toward her, his face painted with both menace and temptation. "Time's running out, Maggie. Make your choice." She glanced around the diner at the faces filled with fear, her thoughts a cyclone of urgency. "We can stand our ground," she declared, her voice steadier than she felt. "I refuse to let fear decide my fate." The atmosphere shifted, and suddenly her adrenaline surged. Whether he was friend or foe didn't matter, she would reclaim her power. She pointed the key at him defiantly. "This is mine, and I'm not backing down." The man's smile faded slightly, a flicker of respect crossing his features as he nodded. "Very well. Let us see what door you choose to open and whether you're ready for what lies behind it." In that charged silence, Maggie made her choice. "I'm ready," she said, the conviction in her voice echoing through the din of fear. With the sirens closing in and shadows lurking, she took a step forward, key glinting defiantly as she pushed past her fear. The world hung delicately, waiting for a spark to ignite the chaos, but in that moment, she felt whole and resolute. This was her story, and she would write the ending, and just like that, with the storm brewing internally and externally, the stage was set for the final showdown. What was at stake would redefine everything. As the diner lurched amid anticipation, the crowd held its breath, awaiting the revelation only Maggie could unlock. But no matter the outcome, one thing was certain: nothing about her life would ever be the same. Now cornered at the precipice, she was determined to see this through. With a final glance back at Victor and the others trusting her to make the right move, she stepped toward destiny, a door of truth waiting patiently to be unlocked. Before the chaos could claim them all, Maggie turned the key in her hand, ready to unveil the secrets that awaited behind the threshold that loomed ahead, all choices converging to a singular moment right here, right now. Whatever it took, she was ready. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Together, let us unveil what comes next.